Welcome to the Maritime Executives podcast series, In the Know. I'm Tony Munoz, Editor-in-Chief. Our Executive Corner podcast will provide conversations with top executives concerning events and issues that are shaping our industry today. We will also bring you up to speed with the latest news and editorials covered by the Maritime Executive. So tell us about yourself.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to you guys. So my name is Matthias Schulze, and I'm heading within Siemens Energy, the maritime and ports business. So I have a naval background, so I was with the German Navy, and since 2000 actually, so for 25 years, I'm with Siemens Energy heading this business and trying to develop what we do.
Been with the company 25 years?
Yes, exactly. I was 12 years with the Navy first, from 88 till 2000. So I did serve as a naval officer in the German Navy, and then in 2000 I joined. At that time, still Siemens, but there was the spin-off, so it's today Siemens Energy,
Right.
and I'm since 25 years with the company, exactly.
That's a good career. And you've seen a lot of changes in the whole scheme of vessels and emissions and power and shore power. And, I always tell people when I first came into the industry, I came into Long Beach. That's what LA Long Beach. And all the ships would gather. There would be ships out in the anchorage, but there would be like 5 or 10 ships at dock, and they didn't plug in. And the LA Times had this scathing article about all the people on San Pedro Island who were dying of cancer, and the rate was so high. And the city of Los Angeles, the port of Los Angeles, made a move on this right away. They put in electric so people could plug in. They were one of the first in the industry, and the industry did follow. And I think that is, I'm very proud of our industry for taking the initiative and doing these things.
Definitely say so. A lot has been happening in this industry, and as you rightfully said, there has been times when heavy fuel oil was burned, even sometimes downtown. And of course, some 20 years ago, I would say, we did kickstart, or even more, 20 to 30 years ago, we did kickstart driving propellers electrically. And driving propellers electrically meant a huge change, especially on the short sea shipping side when it comes to ferries, ferry lines, not emitting any exhaust gases anymore when operating in harbors or near the shore. So a lot happened. And actually, as you probably know, it was in 2015 that we did the first full electric ferry completely running on batteries in Norway, which was at that time the world's first full electric ferry being operated in Norway along the coastlines, so short sea shipping again. So a lot happened in this industry. That's something I can.
I remember that. I remember that ferry specifically. I thought it was an advancement for especially the Baltics that were very conscious about emissions.
Yeah, definitely. So at that time, it was really a bold step to go into that, and providing the equipment based on low voltage DC equipment from Siemens Energy side at that time, and the batteries. But it's now actually 10 years ago. So this whole vessel has been operated for 10 years very successfully. And a lot, this I can confirm again, has changed in the last 10 years with port authorities or governance being much more conscious about what's happening in terms of emissions and having environmentally friendly solutions to provide. So the operators are aware of it. So there's been actually a revolution going through the whole industry when it comes to technology.
Your company is really moving forward with electric propulsion systems. And you have created, and I think one of the recent projects was the Harbor Charger, which is a ferry project for the New York. Can you tell us a little bit about that project?
Yeah, first of all, we are, of course, proud, which I dare say, that we did equip this harbor charger for New York, actually.
Hmm.
So right in the middle of a very big city, and I'm happy that the authorities as well took this step to apply the newest technology. So
Right.
Harbor Charger is an electrically driven vessel, so it's an hybrid, and that can at some stage as well be charged from shore side. It can run faster than the vessels before, and it transports obviously in an environmentally friendly way passengers to Governor's Island. So we are proud, and our US team actually executed that project. And that speaks for itself and is a testament to the team we have there in the US that we are proud of, that was in a position along the needs, the requirements of the shipyard, the authorities, the supply chain in the US to execute such a project. And I should say, in team with the global network that we have as Siemens Energy. Again, if I explain things to our customers, I do explain them that we do drive propellers electrically wherever that makes sense. And with this newest DC technology that we apply to the harbor charger, it's exactly one such significant step that is as well been wanted by the authorities. So it's always as well taking a political will to make such projects happen, and that's why we are, of course, thankful and proud that we could execute this project for New York City.
Yeah, I mean, Siemens is a well-known organization for being out front on propulsion, emissions. I mean, it's an incredible organization, and kudos to you for being hanging out there for 25 years.
Yeah, as we said, I mean, it's we are Siemens Energy. Our purpose is to energize society, and what better purpose could we potentially follow these days? That we need to look into the environment in across all sorts of industries, and shipping being just one of it. And that's why we try to continuously drive technology, bring newest technology on board, and prove that this technology stands on its own merits. It's not just that this technology must be funded or must get extra grants. It's inconvincing. The technology simply makes sense environmentally and as well economically. It can be charged with green power from shore side at some stage. So we do contribute to making our planet a bit better, a bit greener.
Yeah, explain to me one of the key components that you folks are building the legacy on is Siemens Energy Blue Drive Plus C and the Blue Vault ESS technologies. They've been successfully deployed in over 60 vessels, which is substantial. A lot of tonnage that is operating on your systems. Tell us a little bit about these two energy systems.
Yeah, thanks for pointing in that direction. It's really the Blue Drive family that we apply. So we have a
Okay.
Blue Drive Echo, we have the Blue Drive Plus C, we have the Blue Vault energy storage system, which would be the battery technology. And I said we applied it the first time some 10 years ago on a ferry, and ever since we developed it. It was a bold step at that time. And it, of course, it did prove itself in terms of versatility, in terms of flexibility. So we do have this blue drive in different categories, in different sizes. So I keep the easy explanation would be like the garment we wear. It's small, medium, and large. We have it in different
Right.
versions. So we can apply it to smaller vessels, like the harbor charger would be one, but we apply it as well to bigger vessels that run for several hours on battery, entering a fjord, for instance, and have double-digit um, uh, battery hours on board to make this sustainable and emission-free operation possible. So that's what we did as a first bold step in this Ampere, and we rolled it further out and did believe in that technology. And today, actually, Tony, I need to correct you. We have more than 250 vessels being equipped for it. So it's not
Oh,
just six.
it's 250. Okay.
So it's
Well, that's
much
a,
more.
no.
And we do see, as I said, that operators recognize the benefits from this technology. They are, of course, depending as well on the legislation, etc., and on the framework, the environmental framework there, as well forced to enter new technology, avoiding emissions. So we know as a company we are not alone. So we have, of course, a competition which is healthy in the total environment of shipping. But we do trust our Blue Drive technology, which we'll further roll out in these different sizes that I spoke about.
Right. I mean, it's impressive that 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 250 vessels. I thought it was impressive at 60, but 250. Okay. That's a lot. That's a lot of tonnage that's using these blue systems. From a global standpoint of view, the harbor charger is one of the systems that now is that just in one port, or is that a technology that you're driving to other ports around the world?
No, we are actually operating globally. We have an engineering network. For us, it's paramount to have right where the shipyard sits and where the owner sits. We need to have executional expertise.
Right.
As we have it in terms of the New York Harbor Charger, we have a splendid and quite capable US team that executed that project. But we do operate globally. We have a setup in China. We look
Okay.
into harbors in Asia Pacific. We look into harbors in Middle East. We are all over Europe for sure. So we look into Southern America, where we recently got a contract to electrify Bahamas ports. So we are a globally active supplier of these technologies. And it's a kind of a blueprint that we do lean
Right.
on local execution, like we have here, the very agile US team. And we have a similar team in Singapore or in China or in Europe. And we act in a kind of network. So innovation and splendid technology is innovated or developed
Hmm.
these competence centers, and then it's rolled out. And we do lean on the execution that is close to the customer, where later service will happen as well. So that's the scheme how we act. And yes, to your question, we are globally active on the port side as well as on the ship side.
Yeah, the port side globally is a big deal. I just had a podcast interview with the port director of San Diego, and they've just made all that transition, and it was really quite interesting. I grew up in San Diego, so I remember it being a little Navy port, and it's always stayed in my mind, this little Navy port, but it's not. It's a big commercial port now, and with all the tonnage coming through the Panama Canal or going to the Panama Canal, it's a natural point, for refueling or restocking supplies and things of that nature. So they've made a massive investment in that. So you're starting to see a lot of ports move in that direction. So kudos on you folks for leading the way on that.
Yeah,
Um,
if I may add briefly, I guess there's still a development coming when it comes to ports. We do realize ports authorities are recognizing this
oh yes.
possibility, the technology. I've spoken to customers that do run their diesel engines in port 24/7, and how much better would it be if they could be supplied by power from shoreside. So when it comes to the future, I do foresee it's all about autonomy. It's about digitalization in the ports, about automation, and surely the battery technology will further develop. That's something I do see for the years and decades coming.
So, how big is your team that focuses on this agenda?
I would say globally we're a network of around about 1,000.
Okay.
colleagues that are really dedicated to the maritime business. And as I said, we do operate in 5 big regions, as we say,
Mhm.
meaning the Americas, Europe, China, Asia Pacific, and Middle East. And we have core setups in all of those that are again working in a network, applying the same technology. I mean, it's obvious that ship operators in some cases are, of course, globally active, and when it
Mhm.
comes to providing service to the globally active owners, we would need to understand what technology is on board to help them at any time with any problem. So that's why I can't emphasize enough that we would need to look at it globally as a global team and working in this engineering network that I was talking
Right.
about.
I was really surprised that the federal funding for the particular harbor charger. They said they allocated $7.5 million. That didn't seem like a lot of money for something so sophisticated. Are you finding that governments or local governments or regional governments are buying into this and moving the agenda forward with funding? Or does it tend to be just like there are some independent ports like Port Tampa is a prime example, not owned by the community, not owned by the state. It's a privately held company. Very progressive, probably one of the better progressive ports in the United States, but they're private. So, do these private ports also have the benefit of federal funding when it comes to your type of projects, which are so important to the environment and so important to the communities around them?
Yeah, first of all, I should say that any public-private partnership is for us, of course, essential. So we are thankful that New York City
Mhm.
does take in this money for the shore side power supply, if I'm not mistaken. And this is, of course, showing us that there is a political will. They take this issue serious. It's a clear signal that they would want to go into clean marine technologies, and it's a national priority. Do we see it always the same style comparing ports globally? No, not, of course not. It's always as well depending on the business case. But for us, the mix, seeing different harbors, tackling this whole problem differently, and as well this fundings is a strong signal. It's showing us that there is a political will. I mean, as a company, we are as well developing technology. We are investing and we need
Yeah.
to come up as well with a business case. Does it make
Mhm.
sense to develop this technology? Is the customer willing to accept it? Does he trust this technology? Does he see the benefits? And in some cases, it needs this trigger moment where a big city like New York says, hey, yes, we believe in it, we go for it, we invest, we take some money into our hands, and we would want to have a cleaner environment here. And New York's did this. In this case, it's something which we are very thankful for. But the technology as such, as I said, stands meanwhile on its own. It deserved its own merits. It stands
Right.
its own ground. So it's convincing as a technology, and the business case flies because it's higher speeds, it's less fuel consumption, it's different factors. It's green power source that can be taken in, renewable power source that can be taken in. So it's a mix. The overall statement would be yes, we need such triggering topics, we need such indications of political will of big cities, of big players, but the technology as such on a longer term must be convincing by itself. And that's what we achieved meanwhile in the last, what did I say? Starting with the first development of electric propulsion somewhere end of 90s and going into DC some 10, 15 years ago. So
Right.
there's been a development, and today we can say this technology is applied to a wide range of different vessels, and it's convincing because it shows benefits to the customers again in fuel consumption, in flexibility, in cutting CO2 emissions. and being, of course, easier to operate in some cases and being more comfortable because electric drives on board, especially on passenger vessels,
Hmm.
are much more silent. I mean, took once a fully electric ferry on a fjord in Norway. I didn't even realize that we left harbor because I was standing in the machinery space and it was so silent that I didn't realize we actually move already. So
Yeah.
there's as well in comfort, in terms of comfort, there's as well a big difference when it comes to electric drives.
I took a cruise a few years ago. I've taken many cruises, but a few years ago, and we're sitting on deck and we're just getting piled with the emissions. And I mean, it was like, ugh, it was just terrible. And I was like, okay, this is. And then over the years, we've seen the. I love the cruise. We've seen the cruise lines get really invested in this sort of electronic propulsion systems where they can get rid of the emissions and things of that nature. But when you get to like some of the massive ports like Rotterdam, Singapore, and LA and LA Long Beach, you notice the difference in the port environment, that it's cleaner, it's fresher, it's not as I my first trip down to a dock, there was gas and oil and all kinds of crap on the and I was oh, I'm in the shipping business now, and this is how you run dirty ships, or this is how you run ships. And but that's all changed. And it's kudos to our industry for taking the mantle and running forward with it, because we knew the mandates were coming down through the IMO and places like that. So if you know you're going to be mandated, you might as well get out in front of the problem. And so a lot of ports did do that. And I'm glad that your team was very much involved with that. So looking ahead and developing shoreside power systems, um, uh, your your um, your um, your company is working um, with all the majors. It's being, I think, embraced by the industry. So what are some of your issues as you look out front, some of the challenges that you face?
Yeah, it's we need to look at it from different angles. It's grid stability. Again, you have been nicely describing this form environment in a harbor, and of course, a harbor is a huge location, consuming a lot of power. So a grid must supply the power to the pier side, to the ships. So grid stability, supply of clean and possibly green power to harbors is one of the bigger challenges. Then I do foresee that we need to be ready to supply power to quite a variety of different ship types. So it's not just the short sea shipping ferry that crosses
Right.
harbor, but it's much larger vessels, which then will add to the power being required. Then, of course, we have the human factor in there. So I guess we would need to speak about digitalization, that port authorities do see what is my harbor doing. We talk about automation and autonomy to a degree. And of course, we would need to take out human factor by making things more autonomous and reducing human intervention if possible when it comes
Right.
to providing power to this large variety of different vessels. So these are all things that we need to look at. Again, we would love to drive as a company this transition to this new way
Sure.
of operating harbors, making it cleaner and safer. And we will definitely carry on in investing in future technology and supplying infrastructure necessary to make this sustainable maritime future happen. So these are just some few facets of things that the industry probably needs to look at. We have a fuel conversation, of course, greener, other fuels, e-fuels, where we would need to answer
Mhm.
ourselves in the next decades to come. mm, what is supply, what is the amount of fuel being available for our industry. I mean, all industries would love to go
Right.
for greener fuels, and shipping is just one part of it. So that's definitely something that needs to be answered by the industry, aside of the topics that I just mentioned.
Yeah. When you look at the general trade between the United States and Europe, and between Asia, and those are mature trade lanes. But when you get off into some of the Malaysia and some of these other places that aren't so sophisticated in terms of the type of vessels that are operating in the atmosphere, in the sphere, it becomes a little more difficult to control some of their emissions, and control a lot of things, but certainly emissions. And so those investments, a company like yours, well-known, established organization, can come in and help make those changes, because you have the wherewithal to do so. And as you said, you have 1,000 people operating throughout the world, so that gives you an advantage of doing that. And so kudos to you on all of that. So do you have any final thoughts that we can share with our people who are very interested in this? I mean, you're talking to the maritime community, you're talking to operators and port authorities, and all the people that have a dog in the fight. And so, they're very interested in what Siemens is doing, what your energy group is doing. So I'm sure that they'll be very interested in what you have to say. I'm not putting you on. I'm not doing that to you, but help me out here.
Yeah, I would gladly do so. Some last thoughts are actually we need to carry on making this transition, the technology transition happen. We will carry on in investing in this technology. As you just now said, it's 1,000 colleagues on maritime only, I should say. Siemens Energy in total has more than 100,000 employees globally. And I would need to do some brief advertisement on Siemens Energy, because we look into wind power, we look into power plants, utility, into greener technologies when producing power as such. We are looking into transformation of industry, so not only shipping, but other industries where a lot of energy or power is needed. So it's this wider context that we are embedded in as a maritime team that helps us as well a lot, because if you look at the harbor, I'm telling my guys, you should look at it in terms of rings. So it starts with a pier, the inner ring, and then it's the whole harbor. It's potentially then including the power plant and getting bigger and bigger. And that would include actually the complete Siemens Energy team then when it comes to utility and providing power plants, etc., which basically happened at the Bahamas, where we looked into the power plants, and then in the end looked at the inner ring as well, where it came finally to provide power to cruise ships actually. Um, so that's probably one last thought. Again, we will try to push forward on this global engineering network that I was talking on,
Uh-huh.
having actually standards, cooperating as well globally when it comes to the most innovative technology that needs to be rolled out. And what is paramount to us, that's what I said as well, is be close to the customer where service is needed, be close to the customer where the ships are built, to have liaison colleagues, officers close to the shipyard who can actually take in the requirements that are are to be taken into account regionally or locally. And the clocks are ticking a little bit differently when it comes to the Americas, comparing it with China, etc. So we
Yeah.
have a multinational team on board, which is actually lovely to work with.
I'll bet. I'll bet. Yeah, I had the privilege of going to China in the mid 2000s, when they were building their yards and kind of developing the whole thing. And their definitely have the manpower. They definitely have the wherewithal. They have everything going for it. So they are, without a doubt, a global power to be dealt with in the future. But well, listen, I want to thank you for your time,
Thank you very
and
much.
very, very much appreciate what you're doing out there. You're leading a very important part of our industry, and we thank you guys for, making it better for us and getting the regulators out of our world and getting the general population, mom and pop, out of our world, knowing that. And I always tell all of my friends, I said, my industry, I'm so proud of them. They have taken on the emissions, they've taken on the environmental issues that they were a part of the problem, and they're finding great solutions as they move forward. So thank you for being a part of that.
It was a pleasure to talk to you, Tony. Thank you very much.
Have a good day.
Same to you. Goodbye.